Hello guys, this is Movie Lover and welcome to this Movie Lover world. The film opens with best-selling author Catherine Trammell in a speeding car. With her companion Kevin Franks, a famous English football star, Trammell takes the man's hand and begins touching herself, with it all the while increasing her vehicle's speed. It's obvious that the man is heavily under the influence of one drug or another, as he says that he cannot move at the point of climax. Trammell veers off the road and crashes into the West India docks and Canary Wharf. She attempts to save her partner, but as she says while being questioned by the police, when it came down to it, I guess my life was more important to me than his. Trammell is being interrogated by his Scotland Yard detectives. Purge Roy Washburn notes that a highly potent neuromuscular blocking agent was found in her car and in her companion's body. After an awkward and uncomfortable interaction with the head of police, Jamil goes to Dr. Michael Glass for her psychological evaluation. Just as she comes into his office with her lawyer, Trammell looks at the water and decides that she doesn't want to have her lawyer present during their conversation. Trammell tries to seduce the doctor, but the doctor seems immune and almost too professional even when she tries everything to get a rise out of him. After their evaluation, Dr. Michael testifies in court that in his professional opinion he thinks that she has something called risk addiction and that she is now and will forever be a danger to herself and other people, as the only thing that will ever stop her from taking risk is her own death. As everyone thinks Trammell is about to go behind bars, the doctor gets a call from the head of police saying that she was set free on account of the witness against her being non-viable. A few days later, Trammell goes to Dr. Michael's office, and she asks him if he can help her with her problems. Michael is against this idea as he finds Catherine very intense, and he seems to have mixed feelings about her, and so Dr. Michael tries to direct her to another doctor, but the headstrong Catherine is adamant, and so the doctor gives in and tells her to come another time on schedule. We see Trammell beginning to play mind games with Dr. Glass, who becomes increasingly frustrated with and yet intrigued by this mysterious woman. At an event where many psychoanalysts are gathered, Catherine makes a surprise appearance with Jacob, a renowned psychoanalyst that everyone loves and respects. Dr. Michael feels upset and uncomfortable now that she's at his party, and so he decides to leave, as he strictly does not socialize with his patients. As he was getting his coat upstairs, he looks up and sees Catherine in front of him, dressed provocatively, and Catherine tries to seduce him, but to no avail. That night, Michael goes on a date with Michelle Broadwin and mates with her in a rough manner. All of a sudden, Glass receives a phone call from his ex-wife Denise. In a state of distress, her partner Adam Towers, a journalist that was writing a negative story about Dr. Glass, has been found strangled to death on his bed. Glad suspects that Trammell committed the murder and is attempting to frame him for it, as he found a cigarette lighter at the scene of the crime, which looked very familiar to hers. The next day at his office, Jamil shows up late than usual and tells him that she knew his wife Denise, and she too was also sleeping with Adam Towers on the side. Michael is very disturbed by this, as he knows this Adam was out to get him. In one of their sessions, Catherine becomes very upset at Michael for thinking that she's the one that killed Adam, and she decides to quit therapy. Before she leaves, Catherine tries to seduce the doctor in a very obvious and direct manner. She then leaves, saying that she's terminated her therapy sessions. Meanwhile, Michael becomes more and more obsessed with Catherine, even going so far as to reading her books. Michael develops a long name for her and calls her repeatedly to come to his office so that they can discuss their discord and move on, but Catherine does not answer at all. One night, Michael follows Catherine as she leaves a friend's house, and he follows her to a sketchy part of town where she is giving money to a man who goes on to choke her and take her to a brothel. Michael follows her to see that she's making love to a male prostitute. Michael is now more than ever very confused and frustrated, as Catherine is playing all these mind games that are affecting him very much. His friend and also fellow therapist tells him to stop seeing her as a patient, and that if she should ever call, he should suggest his friend, who's a woman, and it is obvious at this point that Michael is in love with Catherine. That night, Michael goes to see his ex-wife Denise, as he was told by the police that she's given some information that he told her in secret. Michael goes to a nightclub to talk to his wife and then gets into a heated argument and then punches two men to follow her to another club. After he gets to this other club, Michael sees his ex-wife Denise talking to a blonde and They both go off to the bathroom and Michael follows them as he enters the quiet and almost empty bathroom. He hears some sort of sound when he opens one of the stalls. He finds his wife on the ground with her throat cut, bleeding to death. At the police station they questioned him, and all of a sudden, Catherine shows up and tells them some wrong information, getting Michael out of trouble. That same night Michael goes to Catherine's house and the two make love. As Michael was looking around Catherine's house, he finds a capsule and some syringes in her fridge and takes her to Detective Washburn to get them analyzed. Later Michael finds out from Catherine's lawyer that Detective Washburn is actually a dirty cop and that Adam was going to write about him before he got killed. Eventually Michael finds himself no longer being able to tell right from wrong. The situation comes to her head during a confrontation between Glass and Trammell at her apartment, where after a struggle Glass attempts to kill Trammell. Trammell gives Glass a copy of a draft of her next novel titled The Analyst. After reading it, he realizes that Trammell has novelized most of the recent events with herself and other people related to Glass, even himself as characters. Then it turns out that the character based on herself is going to kill a therapist based on Glass's colleague Dr. Molina Gardish. Michael runs to his friend's apartment to warn her, finding Trammell there. To his dismay, Gardish tells him that he's no longer in charge of Trammell's therapy and that he's going to have his license revoked due to bad practice regarding Trammell's treatment. Trammell has told Gardish that Michael has attempted to kill her and that he may be out of his mind, and then an altercation happens between Gardish and Glass, in which Gardish gets knocked out. Trammell instantly pulls out a gun she was carrying and threatens Glass with it, but he takes it away from her, and as soon as this happens Washburn arrives at the scene and Glass all of a sudden shoots him. In the final scene, Elle pays a visit to Glass at a local mental hospital, and he learns from her that the subject of her latest best-selling novel was a man very much like him. Trammell then goes on to say that she's manipulated Glass into murdering all those people for her own amusements, and flashbacks are shown of Glass indeed committing the murders due to Catherine's manipulation. Trammell leaves with a wicked smirk on her face, while Glass continues to sit silently in his wheelchair, stymied with frustration and rage. And with that the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching. Movie Lover will meet you again with new story. Till take care.